And we don't have a workshop or presentation today. Today it's going to be a panel discussion, and I hope it's going to be one that is very interesting just to listen in, but also for you to put something as question and contribute to discussion as well. This event, if you are joining for the very first time, it's organized by AIRON. AIRON stands for AI in Research Operation Network. And we are basically community of people supporting research day in, day out, and interested in AI adoption. And what is very special about us that we are global community. So please make sure to say hi in a chat to everyone. Tell what you are doing, your opinion on AI, your struggles, any advantages you see as well. Maybe someone that's working on the same project at different institutions. So it's a great opportunity to connect as well. I think my Siri was just talking to me. So I have activated today something. So I think there will be no other interaction, but maybe Siri has something else to participate and tell us as well. Okay, so the microphones and cameras are on. So everyone walking now to schools and picking up your children and listening on the mobile phones, please switch your microphones off. So just very quickly to introduce our panelists today. So as you know, Marjo Michon is joining us from INRAE Transfert. Marjo, you have to explain us what it is, from France. Jim is joining us from the city, New York University in US, and Jan is joining us from USD in Denmark. And please. That's just very quick introduction. But before we start our discussion, maybe you can extend the very spare introduction and tell in maybe one or two sentences, what do you think about AI? So every one of us listening in has a little bit more context to your answers as well. Jan, let's start with you, maybe.
Yes, so my name is Jan Andersen, and I'm a senior executive advisor at the University of Southern Denmark. And maybe you see that I look a little bit uncomfortable. So it has actually three different reasons. So one reason is that I'm definitely not an AI expert, and I see so many really knowledgeable people in the room. And the second is that I'm also a little bit stressed about the situation we are in, because things are changing almost on a daily basis. So one answer today can be wrong tomorrow, and decisions you take now can be challenging and lock you into situations you don't want to be in by choosing a wrong operator or choosing a wrong tool or using all your efforts in one direction. And the last thing is that I see so many clever colleagues here that that have much more experience and know-how. So I'm also an old person. So what do we do with all us old people in the office who are struggling with their catching up and following the development?
Thank you, Jan. I think your perspective will be very, very valuable as well. And we will be able to learn as well in the discussion your opinion and benefit from this as well. Marjo, could you maybe one or two sentences tell us how do you feel about AI?
Yes. So few words about me, I work for INRAE Transfert, which is the technology transfer company for INRAE, so which is the National Institute for Research in Agriculture, Nutrition and Environment. And so I'm working in the Europe department, so we are collaborating with researchers, so in INRAE in France, and in Europe, and internationally around European projects. So normally with the Horizon Europe scheme. And so, of course, so my experience as Jan, I'm not expert in AI, but however, we are in this new landscape where AI is everywhere and it's offering us of course, great opportunities, and we all, in my opinion, need to learn how to work with it. Exactly how Jan said, everything changes every day, and I think we are in the point, we'll discuss it, but that we need to accept that the AI is here today, if we want or not. So the question, are we ready?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's a good question. We'll see at the end. Jim.
Good afternoon or morning, depending on where you are. I'm in San Antonio, Texas. It's a little bit after 10 in the morning here. I have been in research administration 30 years. I will never call myself old, no matter how much age happens, because everyone in America is eternally young. But I have done international work for 30 years, longtime NCURA and IRMA member. I'm also the faculty coordinator for the City University of New York MS in Research Administration and Compliance program, which covers both our master's degrees as well as our certificates in compliance and research administration. And I completely agree with what Jan and Marjo are saying. You know, AI is rapidly changing. I'm reading a lot of articles here in America about the psychological effects that AI will have on modern workforces, not only in our profession, but in law, where I was originally schooled, also in other parts of the business world. So I think everybody is in the same boat in that regard. So I think this is, you know, we've always talked in NCURA or IRMA about constantly upskilling and improving our skills, and AI is one of them. But I also know that at the end of the day, human beings should control AI. AI should not control us. And so that goes to managing AI in a way that would help us do our jobs better, maybe with a higher quality of work, but in a humane way, that we have vibrant careers going forward. So welcome to everyone here, and I'm ready to get going, Anna.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jim. I like what you said. We are all in one boat, and this is so true. And that's why this is the right time to put everything on the table and discuss. So we are rowing the boat and not being pushed in one direction without having any decision on it as well. Okay, so let's start our discussion, and I just want to I want to skip the question where and should AI be used, because it's already there. But I would like to see, based on your experiences, how do we manage the fact that AI it's already there, and we know that there is a lot of opinion, there is a lot of different practices. Let's start with Jan. You're on top of the screen. So, at least for me. Yeah. So are the research offices ready for this, or are we still writing guidance, looking at the policy while the world has already moved on?
So if I look at my own office, I think we are all using AI in different types of contexts and either as direct developing our own tools or using university tools, and have been doing such, at least at my university, for a number of years now. And I also know some of the colleagues that are in the meeting that they have the same type of experience. What I see is more like we are a little bit fighting in the dark with a lack of proper learning, proper education, proper skills to do it. So I would say that training in using AI would be the most critical point right now, so that we can become better and that our young colleagues can become better in using AI for the right topics and the right things to use AI for.
Yeah, I agree. So would you say we are ready for use of AI, or would you say it's just like, okay, it's just a little bit of training, this is what we need, and all will be good? Or is there anything else besides the training?
It's yes and no. So to some extent, our framework in the institutions, like directions, guidelines, and so on, they are now coming up. We also have European recommendations on AI use. We have regulations of AI use in applications and review processes and so on coming up. But I think that is more using it as a plain, more or less. I would say a flat tool more than actually really moving or using the power of AI that can actually change the whole way you work around things. And that is the next step where I think we should be looking. This is where things are going, developing frameworks for really changing our whole work life. Because we do what we are used to do, but we do it with as if it was just a prolongation of our office package, which it is definitely not. It's a new concept and it's a new way of thinking, and that has not emerged yet. I think this is extremely comparable to the experience I had when I was starting in university, when computers were put on the desk and people were using computers primarily as typewriters for a very long time until they found out all the other things it could do. And I think we are. I think it's not a similar. It's the similar barriers we have, that it's new technology and we don't know how to use it, so we just do what we normally do, and then we ask AI to do it a little bit better. But that's not the concept about AI. The concept about AI is that it's reframing what we do and how we do it and why we do it.
Yeah, thank you, Jan. Marjo, so just let's continue that thought from your experience, because I know you work with a lot of international projects. So do you see anything changing in terms of like collaboration, the power dynamic, the people or the institutions having more access to the tool or more training, and versus the institutions they just basically not using AI, don't have access to those tools?
I think that we are still in the era that things are changing a lot. As said, there are the regulation starts coming, the instructions, but I think that they still vary a lot between countries, between different institutions, and I think that there is still a difference of those institutions that have taken an active AI policy, who have decided to take a stand, and even when we see that sometimes the instructions, regulations are coming late, it's a little bit like all the new technology that we have seen arriving, that we need to operate in this environment without having necessarily all the knowledge. We don't even always know how to react if we see a document that we suspect has been used, drafted by AI. But I think that, yes, the future questions are if the power dynamics can change, or how the collaboration or coordination can change, because I want to have the positive aspect or view on this, that it can support us in our job. We can be more efficient. Hopefully the coordination can become as well more supported by AI. But maybe the question to ask is, who is the one choosing what we do with AI? Or if we let AI to decide what are the direction we are going to take in the projects, or is it really the voice of the coordinator? Those are the questions I see coming, because of course there are lots of potential. It can support partners as well, and hopefully the administrative part can become simplified. But often the question is here, when we want to simplify something, then suddenly we might end up creating more processes, more difficult ways of handling things.
Yeah, I completely agree also with the point what you just mentioned. Like, if there is really no like advice, guidance, policy, something from your institution, people feel less confident because not quite sure what they have to do, and there's this, a big hurdle to the AI adoption as well. Thank you so much. So, Jim, I'm just wonder, because you have seen a lot of, you have years and years of experience, you've sold a lot of practices, and I just wonder about your perspective. If you have two or more collaborators coming together, so should they be required to disclose the use of AI? How does it work? Have you observed anything, and do you have any advice how this is supposed to be handled?
Well, I guess the advice I would give in the AI era is the same I'd give pre-AI, which is to build true trust with partners in America and Europe and Asia or wherever. You do need to be upfront with each other. And, I've done a lot of, contracts and that sort of thing with colleagues, for instance, in Europe and elsewhere. And I'm kind of the straightforward type, meaning after I got 10 years into my career, I ceased being reticent about asking the hard questions. And I do think we do need to ask the question of our partners, to what extent are they using AI to write, a grant proposal or a subcontract proposal? It may depend, especially if the sponsors want that sort of information divulged in the proposal itself too. As a lawyer, I kind of think of this as being, protecting the reputation of our faculty and the reputation of the university. And so always being upfront is one of the best rules I can tell anyone on this webinar today. And that does not change from, what we used to do up until the last 5 or so years when AI, burst on the scene. I think also listening to Marjo and Jan, and they kind of hit on the topic that resources are different between different size universities. That was true before AI, and that is true now. The major research universities in the United States have more resources in AI and AI support than your medium and small universities. And the risk of exacerbating differences in research volume and research capability still remains. And as I've been reading and this is slightly off topic, but still relevant to everyone on the webinar, because we're in the business of educating, and upskilling. But there is concern that you're going to see a difference in cognitive development between younger generation folks that did not have to learn old school like Jan and I did, okay? We grew up through the internet revolution and beyond, you know, electronic submissions of proposals and all of that. So if the system, if AI crashes, I know what to do. But if you have younger, new research administrators that didn't learn to do things the old school way, and AI all of a sudden does not perform, what does that, how, you know, what can we do to help those individuals to jump that gap? That's why I keep reemphasizing that although we have AI and it's a great tool, it's no substitute for our brains. And you know, if you do allow that to happen, you're hollowing out human cognitive development in the profession, which is, you know, the whole purpose of education, if you want to be honest about it. So there are concerns about discrepancy in resources and influence on top of the normal issues we have doing international collaboration anyway, which, you know, is always a bit problematic for a variety of reasons. So, you know, I think, you know, Marjo and Jan would agree, you know, we have to maintain a very wide open perspective on AI and a constant education, you know, whether you're in the field 2 years, 20 years, or 30 years, we're always learning more anyway. So we don't know everything, and I'm happy to admit I don't know the answer to everything. But I've seen a lot, and I know most circumstances, but that doesn't mean you know everything. And so I think we're all constantly learning, and that's why this session is really good. So I hope that answers at least a little bit, Anna, your question.
Thank you so much, Jim. And I just kind of because you referenced to Jan, if you can tell us your opinion. So let's say, and you know, this is already practice. What happens if AI now goes in and it's really supporting in the majority of the communication, negotiation, judgment, partner search, and so on? What do you think it's going to be benefit of it? And where is the dangers we cannot see? And of course, you know, humans, we like the convenience when something can be done for us very quickly. So we might choose use AI for this sort of task, but where do you see dangers, maybe?
So basically, this is a tool that is used for improving productivity. So it will give us an enormous power to do so much more than we are used to do. And that will give us two different perspectives. One perspective is that this freedom that we can be released of a lot of work, or it can be something that will actually give us some more work, because now we can be so goddamn productive. So we'll just have to work more, so I'm a little bit anti-monopoly in this. I'm concerned that all this knowledge will end about in the house of ownership of big financial companies that have commercial interests rather than the benefit of society as a major interest. So I would think this is a good time to start to discuss who is actually benefiting from this. And all the data, all the things we put into to this is actually ending up feeding those large language models, and not just not just keeping on pace, but also actually enable them to being even more productive and more clever, because they do not stop with what they know. They keep accumulating knowledge and keep accumulating new methodologies and so on. So I don't think that it is a productivity increase that can be used for different purposes. And my thing is that this should be used for the benefit of society, for the benefit of research, and maybe also have to give us a little bit more freedom in our work. We can actually be more creative. We can have more fun. It's a lot of boring tasks that's taken away from us, basically. And I don't know if you agree, but for example, in the research support office, I think this can be maybe a collapse of the existing funding system that is based on researchers writing competitive proposals to a review panel. And if both sides are using AI, we will have the two AIs competing with each other on this, and that will then collapse the system in itself, which it's actually more or less already happening, for example, with this gigantic oversubscription of Marie Curie, and we'll probably see it in the other upcoming calls, that the funding system will collapse, and this with writing applications and so on. So what is the new roles we have to take on as research supporters in this? Is maybe making more space for clever researchers to be able to collaborate and come up with new, more ingenious solutions and ideas.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was your question.
Yeah, I was asking for ventures, but you very cleverly twisted these two opportunities, which I really like. I'm just also wondering if there is anything, Marjo, for yourself. You use AI. Have you possibly, just to extend the thought, have you seen something for yourself, having possibly more time, or having more time to for your colleagues, maybe better opportunity to create collaborations? Have you seen anything of this in practice coming up for you?
I would say that I consider that it can give more time for more intellectual work to happen. I don't think we are still there, because often we are working in a system that is way bigger, so we cannot just decide what we are doing, but in a smaller scale. If I think my team and the people I'm working with, of course, I think that we are having two camps. Like, there are those who are resisting or skeptical about AI, and then are those who are more open and willing to try and test. So I think that we still need to well, maybe it will happen like when the mobile phones came. I think there were always those who resisted until they couldn't anymore. They had to accept that it's the new technology, and you just need to follow it. But I see it more, as Jan said, as a creative power, because then I don't have to. It's a little bit like collaboration itself. If I stay in my corner and I'm alone, it will take more time to get the ideas. And when I collect the people around me, we will create more, and I will get ideas from my team I would not ever maybe have. So I see AI as well more in this context, that it can power our creativity, and in that sense, it can be a tool for creating more and more meaningful concept context, hopefully.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Marjo. So I think it's really good observation, and like Jan just before confirmed, it looks like AI exposes weaknesses of the existing system, or we cannot add AI basically to what we have been doing for last 20-30 years. We have to now kind of like reinvent the new workflow and the ways of working, look possibly what AI can do, and define what we humans can do, what we are best at, rediscover our talents, and this could be the golden age basically for human skill development. Let's hope so. So Jim, if this is the way we are building the world, and then in this context of developing international collaboration, which is, as this what we mentioned, inequalities between different institutions and so on, how this supposed to look like? How are we supposed to move forward from your experience? What the framework of this work supposed to be, so we can work on research, collaborate in a responsible way?
I'm going to try and be positive here. As some of you probably know, if you're outside the United States, we do have an administration that has launched some frontal attacks against some government agencies that gave grant money to foreign entities and did a lot of good in the world. And that money is gone. And even NIH and NSF, the Congress has pushed back on larger cuts. But in the press, we are hearing that those agencies are issuing awards at a much slower pace. For instance, I just heard a few days ago, and maybe you heard about it in Europe, that Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore had to lay off 100 research administrators because they lost $500 million in federal funding. Where are those people going to go? And so I'd like to say there's a wait and see attitude, because I grew up at the time when we all wanted more collaboration. There was more money generally going out. The budgets may not have been increasing by 10% a year. It may have been 2% under a Republican president, and that sort of thing. But now I think everybody is when you have some broad-based attacks on expertise and knowledge and the higher education system in the United States, a lot of people are taking a wait and see attitude on what the next 6 months brings, particularly with the midterm elections in November, and to see how that changes in the House and Senate. But that being said, there are still, any university in the United States that has collaborations in Europe or Asia or the Middle East or whatever, they should be leveraging their own existing partnerships. Now, there are certain countries, of course, China, North Korea, Iran, I think, Syria, that were always in a bit of a no-go category anyway, going back under presidents in both parties. But for the rest of the world, there is still opportunity. I think the issue becomes, where are you going to find the money? And then, as Marjo and Jan were just talking about, if you're increasing productivity at the pre-award level, meaning the pre-award office is getting more grants out the door. I mean, that's the traditional metric. My first job was in pre-award. You have to get more grants out the door. Well, let's say you're at University X and you increase proposal activity by 15% in a given year. But the funding that the agencies that you are pursuing have 0% growth or 10% decline. That means you got more proposals chasing smaller amounts of money, which means, and Jan is shaking his head, he knows where we're going here. And so the success rate drops, and we know that faculty, regardless of country, get discouraged when they get rejected too much. And that's particularly true in the small bachelor's and master's universities in the United States, who before Trump always felt that they were at a disadvantage of the Harvards, the Caltechs, the Michigans, the Texas, the big R1 universities over here. And so, and I spent a lot of time encouraging faculty not to become discouraged. But I think on one general level, and I've seen this more and more in other online trainings, that AI is good for automating certain, lack of a better term, entry-level tasks that research administrators could do. And many of that can be communication and email and that sort of thing. And I think that's coming because the same thing in the legal world where I grew up, a lot of jobs that I got when I was 25 and right out of law school, they're disappearing now because the law firms have AI to do some of that initial lawyer grunt work I would have done right out of law school. So that has staggering implications, I think, for HR structures. It has implications for salary structures, promotional opportunity, and that sort of thing. Because while I think in the abstract it sounds great to say, hey, we can have the machines do a lot of this entry-level basic stuff, and everybody can then, blossom into more creative research administration roles. What does that really mean? And will your institute or institutions support that? That goes how leadership at your university approaches all of this, and that is, of course, subject to wide variety of thoughts, I would suspect.
Thank you, Jimmy. You had a lot of complexity. It's kind of, we started with AI, job shifting, structural, possibly our funding models are going to change and who knows what. But I just wonder, in this times, isn't it that the trust matters a lot? And this is something, you cannot develop trust in AI. I mean, it, can provide information, you can, but it's completely different rather than, sharing you funding with another institutions and so on. Isn't it something, the time to embrace it? And I wonder, Marjo, how would you, in your job, embrace the moment of providing the human trust, and maybe with the perspective of creating here new skills and new tasks that haven't existed so far in the system?
I think that there is more need for trust in this new era than even before, so that the human contact becomes even more important. And I think that in that sense, the human skills will actually be more valued than before. I don't know if I'm the only one, but I don't, even if I use AI, I find it very useful in many things, but I don't want to chat, or when I have a question or problem, whatever it is at work or in my personal life, I want to talk to a real person. And I don't want to have answers from a chatbot or someone, a machine calling me or discussing with me. And I think that here is still the value in our time. And to take it a little further, I think, well, talking to a human, of course, contains a risk that this person will give me an information that is not correct. But I think that I can handle it better because I still have the contact with the human. But if I get an answer that is generated by AI or even given by a person, but it's AI created, not checked, I think that would kind of break the trust I would have in the institution, in the system, in the person. And I think that in this context, the trust is even more important, maybe than before.
Yeah, I completely agree. Jan, I just wonder in terms of if you would let your team, let's say you incorporated AI, they do the forms, they do the emails, whatever it's possible. So with the time gained, where would you like your team to invest this time in? What task would you give them if they, let's say they want 20-30% of the time during a week?
Yes. So let's just, because it's not the reality that we cannot really measure how much time we are freeing up, because as Marjo points out, that the validity is not yet at a stage where you cannot cross-check and control the outcome. But that would probably be something that will be solved probably within a year or so, or maybe a little longer, I don't know, that you can trust the answers you get, at least from a factual point of view. I would say that and that's also what I've always been actually an advocate for, that instead of like diving into big applications and budgets and structure and email back and forth, it would be much more interesting to have these discussions with researchers on where do they actually want to go with their research, where are actually the potentials, where there are their ambitions, what drives them in finding new knowledge, because that is the only thing that AI cannot. AI can generate all based on all the knowledge. It can come up with some really interesting questions, but they cannot come up with something new. It is all they can combine it in interesting ways and so on, but that is where humans will beat an AI to come up with new thoughts and new ideas.
Yeah, I completely agree. We are coming we have just basically 1 minute to finish our discussion, and then open to discussing with everyone participating and being on a call. And I hope everyone, you have a good question now to the panelists, or maybe comment how you feel about the whole situation. But before we finish, I want you to complete one sentence. Jan, let's start with you. In international research collaboration, AI will be helpful only if
we can secure equality in access and use of AI.
Thank you. Marjo?
If people will continue to work together.
Exactly. And Jim?
So long as the AI increases the value of what the faculty and we are doing. Otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. It was really, really good discussion. Thank you for all of you to putting your opinions and being so honest as well. And as I said it when we started the discussion, it's really the time to do it now, and put our opinions and our ideas forward. By coming back to the audience, I haven't checked. I think there is no questions. There was possibly some question Q&A. we have a couple of questions. So the first question is from Zara. And thank you, Sarah. There is a lack of training in AI at many universities, let alone AI policies for research collaborations. Where should universities start with this? Any pointers, please, to help us get started, which feels so behind already? So is there any, not quite sure, Jan, would you like to take the question?
Yes. I don't, so I can only answer for myself and for our institution how we work. But as I can see it, it seems as if everybody is a little bit unclear on tools to use and what tools to where to start. Basically, getting started with different kinds of things. So I would say. I would suggest training on what can actually AI be used for, not how AI can be used, not the ethics and so on. I think that will come, but what can it be used for? So that instead of like we using additional typewriters, we use it as something that can be really beneficial. But that's just from where we are. So maybe Marjo has some better points.
So from my point of view, I think the only way to move on is starting in smaller groups, because waiting for often big machines, the institutions to advance, it can be very slow. And this is, of course, you need to find the people who are having the will, the mind to do this with you, because I see it that otherwise we cannot move on. But exactly try to find the examples or test it where we can use it, where it can create real benefits in the work.
Yeah, thank you so much, Marjo. Jim, do you see any specific workflows in terms of research collaborations where I could be used as a first step?
Well, I think at this stage of AI development, some of the old existing workflows are okay for the time being. But I think whatever an institution uses, they need to be proactive in training their staff to be the best they can be in the area. That's different than just mastering a basic AI tool, Copilot, ChatGPT, whatever. I mean, I've dabbled with some of it, and I'm mildly interested in its potential, but I also know that most of it is constantly, like Jan mentioned early on, the technology is so rapidly changing, which is why, we're not here talking about a specific platform, because in 3 months, the platforms will have changed and the education will have to change with it. I know certainly if you're in a professional organization already, there's more than enough stuff going out there on that are AI focused. For all the non-NCURA members who are on this webinar today, NCURA has an easily accessible YouTube Tuesday channel on YouTube, NCURA 1959, which is the year NCURA was founded. And there's tons of stuff up there too. But remember, that stuff is rapidly changing too. So, but whatever workflow your institution has, it has to feed into the strategic planning of where the university is going anyway. Is your university trying to grow the amount of money you bring in? Is that going to increase? Are you just trying to keep your existing dollar amounts in place? There's an excellent discussion in the chat about people that have signature authority, and like I've had it at a few universities, and you think about, I read everything, and if you see something with AI development, are you going to look at that even more critically, or are you going to look at it less critically? And there's an article in the Atlantic magazine yesterday here in the States talking about AI, and it turns out in some blind tests, I think it was Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, that set up an experiment where they had ChatGPT create false knowledge. And they gave it to human beings, and human beings agreed with it 80% of the time. And the information was wrong. That's the gap that we have to address. The gap between blindly accepting what AI feeds you, however you're using it at your university, and what you know not to be the case. And so I think this is one of the challenge, because, and I'm starting to write an article on this, is that those of us in the research management profession have to build our mental muscles despite the emergence of AI. Otherwise, AI will hollow out a lot of people's thinking skills, because they're going to offload thinking onto the machines and think that machines will do it better than human beings, which may in some cases be the case, but I don't think we want to go quite down that rabbit hole.
Thank you, Jim. Let's take next question from Andrew. Any thoughts from the panel about the impact of AI on international collaborations when partners may have to abide by different policies and guidances? I'm allowed to use it, you not. How do you collaborate?
I think we will see a lot of that coming up in the next years, where there will be contradicting guidelines. You will also see institutions having guidelines, and for example, you have to disclose if you are using AI or not. If you would immediately now you can still see whether AI has been used or not. There's some signals you can look out for, but I think this is just some child diseases in a very short time. It will be impossible to see whether anything has been generated by AI or not. So even though you have to disclose it, you don't have to, because nobody will know that it's not. So I think we end up in a lot of ethical discussions. Where does this, or where is the originality of this idea actually coming from? Is it something that was pulled out of AI, or is it actually a generally new idea? I think this is our job. Basically, it'll be our job in the future to be that kind of reality checkers, so to speak.
Yeah, thank you, Jan.
Yeah, legal wise, we cannot do anything. I mean, it's just we will end up in those contradictions all the time. But we have done that in the past as well, with, for example, with rights to IPR and stuff like that between the EU and US. So we know the drill, how it is with. So we will find ways to come around that, definitely.
Thank you, Jan. There is one more question from that I skipped. I didn't scroll down. Sorry. From Giada. How do we reconcile this inevitability of AI employment in all aspects of work, research, because of the assumption that will make everything more efficient, with the environmental toll that the AI economy takes? Do you have? I'm not quite sure who would like to answer this question. What do you think? Should we continue? Even we have all these big data centers being built, and we know already that a lot of communities living proximity of the data centers are suffering, and we need more and more power. What do you think about it? Is it sustainable enough, this to go ahead? not quite sure if one of you has any experience or strong opinion on this one.
So I think it contributes to the inequality. So who can actually afford getting access to AI tools? What does it cost? Do we have the infrastructure in place to actually transfer all this amount of both data, but also use of electricity and so on? I think it has a huge environmental impact. But on the other side, you can say everything will go down or everything will be fine in the future. I think we will find solutions to it, but I think maybe they should be governed by more policy intervention than we see now. That we cannot risk, for example, access to other necessary resources. For example, access to drinking water, health. Equality of life, childcare, and so on, for being able to make a prompt in ChatGPT. That's my opinion. So I would say more policy regulation would definitely be helpful, putting demands on finding sustainable solutions.
And to piggyback on what Jan is saying, local communities and states in America are now pushing back against large-scale data center development because it's using massive amounts of electricity off the grid, which raises the prices for local communities, homeowners, people that rent, that sort of thing, and water usage. And there's western parts of the United States that are pretty tight on water. So there are concerns. It's taking a while for this to pick up steam, because I think the proponents of these centers wanted to move so quickly before local opposition could coalesce to stop it. But it is starting to happen now. And I think does that impact universities? I don't really know immediately if that's the case. But I do think, I'm all for efficiency and optimization of human potential. But there are articles coming out in the States from the business world, not research management, but the business world, that the use of AI chatbots and AI agents is actually not making our lives any easier. It's making our lives harder. Some managers now are having to manage 8 or 10 chatbots a day at night. So it's actually having the effect of blurring the line between our professional and personal lives. And we all talk about work-life balance, but guess what? AI and its associate, it's like having chatbots is like having a bunch of little children, and you have to constantly go on the computer to make sure they're playing well with each other. So how is that going to impact our regular work world here? I mean, research administrators I worked for most of my career, I put in 60 hours a week. No thought about it. Many of my colleagues did not do that. But if you wanted to get promoted, you had to do that. And then there's a price to pay for putting in those kind of hours too, to anybody who has done, that sort of breakneck work. And you can't do it forever. Eventually you burn out. And we don't want that in the profession either. So I think coming out of COVID, we all talked about having balance in our lives. And now comes AI, and that if policymakers and if university leadership and VPs for research aren't saying, we need to promote balance for all of us between our personal and professional lives, there may have to be some limits put on AI. I don't know what the answer to that is, but I think consistent with what Marjo and Jan are saying, I think institutions, professional associations, well, different countries are slowly addressing it in their own unique ways. So there is no one right answer for any of us here today. It's really to have these sort of forums to expand, our knowledge and experience and take back to our programs. The CUNY program, just one final thought. The CUNY program, I and the other faculty, we don't want students using AI to write their papers and major assignments. They have to write the paper themselves. They can do research, but they have to cite it like you would any traditional book. But there is not, no. But yeah, and the scary thing is, while if a student has tried to slide something past me, that's AI, I can tell right now. I'm not quite sure in 2 years I'm going to be able to tell if AI wrote it or if they wrote it. A C student all of a sudden writes an A+ paper. I know that's AI right there because you know what people are capable of. So for those of us that are in the education of research managers and administrators, we have to think about this too, because part of my job is to make sure our graduates have tools that they can take into their daily work as RMAs.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Wise words, as always, Jim. Thank you, Jan, Marjo, and Jim, for being wonderful panelists today. Thank you, everyone, for attending and listening too. I know everybody has more questions, so please, you can put still in the chat or message me, and I can forward this to the panel. I think, just summing up, AI, it's here. It's not going to go. We have to work on how we trust each other and define this trust as well. But we have to be really realistic with the approach, not to just jump in, but double check with ourselves between humans what we are doing and how we're moving forward, if this is for all of us humanely acceptable or not. The discussions will continue, but this one definitely has enriched our perspective and opinion on AI and what responsible AI adoption means. With this, thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful day, evening, afternoon, and see you at the next event. And we are going now for summer break, and we are going to meet again in September. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye.
Take care, Jan and Marjo.
Take care, you too. Bye.
See ya.